Hey, y'all, Patrick here with Vetted. Thank you guys so much for jumping in. All right, let's jump into these clips because this is going to be a long one. So, again, today we are going to be covering Ron James' interview on the Julian Dory podcast. Ron James is a UFO researcher and director. He's got a new film, sort of new, it came out in April of this year, called Accidental Truth. And he's basically going to talk some behind-the-scenes sort of drama that happened about this film that I find very, very interesting. For some of you, it might be eye-opening. Could be bombshells, just depending on, what you know and what you don't know. I didn't know this stuff. So it's quite interesting. We're also going to cover some stuff about Ron James and MUFON, okay, and some stuff they've done, and we're going to start there and then just roll into this. Real quick, since a lot of you probably won't watch till the end, I need to ask you guys a favor. So look, I'm going to be making a video basically about promises. I got a note here. About promises, okay, about all the promises that UFO people have made in the community, right? Timelines. This is coming on this date, or I got this coming, and that sort of thing. Because I don't know if they're being held accountable to this stuff. They just can say it and then never do it. Months pass, people forget, new people jump in, right? It's hard to keep track of it all. So I want to make a video about bringing all of this together. Why am I doing that? Well, real quick, remember Luis Elizondo tweeted out, please know that ongoing efforts are underway that will reveal themselves by early to mid 2024, right? And at the risk of haters trying to sabotage our efforts, I can't be precise at this time, right? So it's the haters' fault of why he can't be precise. Again, I'm not disparaging Lou, just reading his words, right? And he says, if you've learned anything over the last 5 years, I never make empty promises. I know that for a fact to be untrue, me personally. I'll put a link to the video of why that's untrue. His representative to me last summer told me that within 90 days, everyone who, was a hater of Lou was going to eat their words. It's literally been over a year. But again, they get to say this stuff and then never be held accountable. I can think of other examples. Ross Coulthart saying that he was going to release all this new info, all the best bits of the David Grush interview. That was back in the summer. No updates on that either. I can remember Jeremy Corbell saying that he was going to release all the best bits of Bob Lazar stuff from the documentary. That has yet to come out. Again, I'm not disparaging these guys. Maybe things come up. Maybe they can explain why they haven't. I have not seen any information on them saying, why it didn't come out. But I do remember them making those statements. So anyway, that'll be on that video, but I need your guys' help. Put that in the comments. Let me know other promises that have been made in timelines. And if you have links, send them to me. It'll make it easier for me so I can compile it all. We'll make a great video to hold a lot of these people accountable, because I don't know about you, but the breadcrumb disclosure and kicking the can down the road just seems to be the case, right? It's always coming. It's like tomorrow, right? It's always tomorrow. It's never today. So anyway, let's jump into this video that we're going over today. All right. We're going to start at, again, I'm going to put timestamps and, the links to all of this so you guys can check it out. All right. Let's just jump into this clip. This is about, let's just watch it.
I've talked to, 3 months ago, I had lunch with Andre Carson, the senator, the
Yes.
representative that ran that hearing. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that later.
How'd you get hooked up with him?
Well, I work with MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. We're the oldest and largest organization studying the topic. We have lobbyists in Washington, D.C. And what a lot of people don't know is that we've been behind the scenes in D.C., including some work by Dave McDonald, the director, Jessica Taco, who owns the lobbying firm A10 and Associates, that work for us.
I have interviewed Jessica Taco, so I'll put a link to that description as well. I dropped it in September, I believe. Not many people saw that interview, but it is quite interesting. Here you go. That's why. She also mentions in that interview that they were the ones providing information to Congress. There's more. She explains a lot more in that. So check out that interview. Again, I'll put a link to it.
We've been in D.C. for about 2 years now, softening everybody up over this disclosure thing. And while there's a lot of people out there talking about it, like, oh, yes, I've been in Washington, D.C. doing this, this, and this, we've been there, and we have the proof of it. The hearing that they did with Andre Carson and Mike Gillibrand, Mike Gallagher, we were instrumental in getting those hearings done. We're the ones who talked Andre Carson into having those hearings in the first place. That was us. And so the reason I was having lunch with Andre Carson is because I was introduced to him by the lobbying firm, and a bunch of people from MUFON went up to D.C., and we met with a lot of sitting congressmen. And so I actually sat down with Andre, sat right next to him for over an hour, and I laid it out for him too. And I told him about the movie, because he's in the movie, and he's basically portrayed as one of those people who's towing the line for the news story.
Yes.
And so I kind of had to break that to him. I'm like, well, you're in the film, and we're pointing out that you're supporting the new narrative.
You're not great.
Supporting the new narrative. That's an important part of this video. So, okay, we're about to watch sort of a large portion, not a large portion, but to me, the meatiest part of this interview. It's over 3 hours long, and we're going to watch about 20 minutes or so of this. So it's quite a long video, but if you can sit through it and take it, it's well worth it. It's better than watching the 3 hour podcast. All right, so let me jump to where we're going to start. Okay. Here we go.
Like, closely guarded secrets. It just that's the reality of it. That is what it is. But I'm curious, with all the topics you covered in the film, like as you said, you named accidental truth because of some of the quote unquote accidental truths that were revealed through answers by like Lou and Chris Mellon. But what was the most, if you haven't already mentioned it, what was the most shocking, or not even shocking, surprising thing that you uncovered in making this film that you didn't previously have any idea about or expectation about?
I think that for me personally, as the filmmaker, the most shocking thing was what we were talking about earlier, the very beginning of this, is that there's a good possibility that this evidence in this story has not been properly preserved. And that is the thing that shocks me the most, is that something of this much historical significance could be gone forever. And the people that knew about it are largely all dead. The people that were there when it began, they're largely all dead. And there's a pretty good case that some of the information and some of the evidence is not really stored in some central repository where somebody has the entire story under one roof. And that's frightening, because the idea that it was kept a secret from all of us over these years, that's one thing. That's bad enough. But the idea that it was kept a secret in such a way that maybe there's not even anybody who really knows the whole story anymore, that's really frightening. And when I first was making the film, and I was talking to Lou's people, they're like, well, we're working on this documentary. It's going to be the definitive UFO documentary, and Lou's in it. And I'm like, look, man, I don't think you guys can make the definitive UFO documentary because you're not read in. And you're not gonna go the places that I've gone and tell the story that I've told, because it's not part of the official line that you're gonna have to toe.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
So on Merge Podcast, David Fravor was a guest. Okay, so that's Ryan Graves' podcast. I'll put a link to the podcast, but at the very end, it's literally at the very end when they're sort of done talking and saying goodbye. David Fravor brings up to Ryan Graves that, this new documentary is coming out in September or sometime soon. I believe he said September. Anyway, where's that at? Right? And it was supposed to be the thing, the documentary, and they're both in it. I think they're talking about the same thing, right? And maybe this top secret project that was mentioned is this documentary that, again, it just keeps getting pushed back. Lou's book, everything just pushed back. I don't know, guys. Who knows?
You want to go and make a UFO documentary where you talk to members of Congress and you talk to NASA and you talk to all these guys and you get the cooperation of all these people. You're telling us an organized story that is not true, because
that's interesting, right? I'm looking forward to James Fox's new interview. We're going to be covering that in a video this week because he said some things in an interview I did with him last November, and he's been saying things in other interviews he's done about his upcoming documentary. So we're going to be covering that. That's the one I'm looking forward to the most.
NASA, who just heroically said they're going to start looking at UFOs. I mean, come on, man. Really? You're going to start looking at UFOs, NASA, now. Okay, let's just put that one aside. Thanks for that. Appreciate it.
I agree.
So anybody that's going to, well, we've got the head of NASA, we have the Intelligence Committee, we got the Secretary of Defense. Okay, like Mike Barra says in my movie, you're not the right people to be coming out with this because you're the ones that have been lying to us for all these years. And so anybody that thinks they're going to go and feature all these people in a way that I didn't do it, I got the people in this.
So this is interesting, real quick, little tidbit. I was supposed to interview Mike Barra and Darcy Ware. He is a filmmaker with 1091 Pictures. That's the same company that puts out James Fox's documentary and Ron James documentary. They do a lot of UFO stuff. And anyway, just so y'all know, they had rescheduled with us, right? So like literally the day of the interview, they rescheduled with us, couldn't do it. So when the next reschedule came for the interview, I had a medical emergency with my teeth, literally a dental emergency. I couldn't do it. And they got angry and canceled the interview and didn't want to do it anymore. So, it's like, hello, y'all reschedule first. Then I go to reschedule and you don't want to do the interview. People are finicky like that. I'm not saying anything bad, but I'm just, those are the facts. And I got the receipts if they want to deny that.
Movie that I shouldn't have gotten to. Nobody else can get to them in the way I did, and because they're very protected. Even Gary Nolan now, you can't get him hardly at all. He's under contract right now to not be doing these kind of appearances.
That's what I talked about yesterday in the video. We tried to get Gary Nolan and just can't get him.
But we got to him fair and square. But I did it. Usually if you can get to the Elizondos, if you can get to the Mellons, if you can get to some of the other people that are in my film, you're being allowed access to them because you're pretty much agreeing that you're going to toe the line.
Exactly. And that's what happened to me last summer. That's what they told me. If you toe the line, right, if you go down this path, then we'll let you interview Luis Elizondo. Because they told me, if you want to go down this other path, you're not going to get the interview. So pretty much any Luis Elizondo interview you see, that's why he does it. Because no pushback can be put in. It's not allowed. Not allowed to ask the tough questions with them. Now, I'm not saying anything bad about people that have interviewed them. They may not know. And maybe they just agree already, so they want to do it. But, I don't see myself ever interviewing Luis Elizondo just for that reason. Because that's just not me. I'm not going to do that. I prefer to be able to tell the truth than have my voice silenced. That my voice is everything. My integrity is everything to me. You can't buy me. You can't unbuy me. You can't pressure me. I don't need a lot to live. I just need my bills paid. I don't need a lot. So that doesn't work with me. But this is also eye-opening, guys. What's about to come up, this is eye-opening. Stick around for this stuff. It's quite frustrating.
The interview that I got with Lou Elizondo was in 2018. It was at the MUFON Symposium where he came to speak. And I'll tell you, he came into that room with me. Tom DeLonge was calling the whole time, telling him, get out, don't do the interview, don't do the interview. He showed up in a bulletproof vest because he was afraid he was going to get shot. And
Lou Elizondo was wearing a bulletproof vest in your interview.
No, he took it off for the interview.
I mean, what are we talking about here, right? What the hell are we talking about here, people? Again, not saying anything disparaging about Lou. I'm just saying this is all interesting. It's all very interesting, y'all. I made a video about who's a disinformation agent, right, recently. And I've had a lot of thoughts about this recently. People are trying to figure it out in the comments and everything. Everyone's like, yeah, this is who it is. It's obvious. I'll be honest, just like anything, it's the person you least expect, right? When you think about a murder mystery, when you watch film, right? It's never they always like put this obvious person in front of you, right? That's doing all these things. You're like, oh, it's that guy. That's not, right? It's always the person you think, no, it could never be that guy, right? It can never be that guy. That's more than likely who it is, right? Because they're doing a good job, right? So I don't know, just throwing that out there. So probably who you think it is wrong, and it's probably the guy you least think it is. Just saying, right? People say Greer. If it's Greer, then he's the absolute worst at it. Why would they pick somebody like that? Again, it's probably the person you think it's least. Let's keep watching. This is eye-opening, y'all.
Yeah, but no, he was at the MUFON conference in a bulletproof vest. It was right in the middle of the media tizzy around TTSA. And basically, everybody in TTSA was under contract. The media surrounding that group became a very valuable asset. It turned into the show Unidentified. And Tom DeLonge and some of the other people had plans to turn TTSA into, a scientific research group, but also an entertainment company that basically had copyrights on pretty much anything. And
I'm going to be doing a video on Tom DeLonge this week as well and diving into TTSA. All right, so
that was out there. So this interview that I got with Lou, you see him out there all the time. You see him on podcasts. You see him on Zoom calls, but you don't ever see him sitting in a studio perfectly lit and with good audio, because there's no other interviews out there that weren't managed by TTSA in those conditions. And that's what made that interview so valuable. And that's why I got so much resistance in using it. I was threatened over that interview.
But yeah, he's not reading from a script, right? Real quick on that video, Kurt from Theories of Everything came and commented on that video, y'all. And he said, I don't think I've ever given questions to Lou. First, just pointing that out, nothing against Kurt, but he said, I don't think I have, meaning he's not sure. Maybe he has. And he said we'd be able to hear the pages turning if he was reading from something. And someone pointed out today in a comment, which I agree, I didn't respond because I thought the same thing myself. What about an iPad? Right? A tablet of some sort. His phone. You're not going to hear those pages. If you think someone can only read from physical pages, look at the world we live in, guys. That doesn't mean anything. So that hasn't been disproven. Not saying that's what's happening, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong if he was. But again, all this is very interesting. It's a lot of smoke, just like the evidence for UFOs. There's a lot of smoke. There's a lot of smoke around Lou, too.
But who the fuck is Tom DeLonge? Obviously, he's Blink 182 guy. But, that was one of the most unintentionally funny parts in your movie when you were talking about To the Stars and you have Tom DeLonge coming out on the stage talking about it. And then, and here's his 5 board members. Fed. And I'm just like, and you even said something sly, obviously all CIA, NSA, so whatever.
Yeah.
But how does Tom DeLonge, no disrespect, he doesn't seem like the second coming of fucking Albert Einstein. How does he end up in this situation where he's telling Lou Elizondo, you're going to do what I tell you to do?
Well, here's what happened. Okay. And there's, this is a very, very interesting story. And,
please do tell.
All right, so Tom DeLonge was
money, y'all.
Let me caveat this, okay? This is my opinion, a lot of it, from what I've understood. I am not going to say that everything I'm about to say in this thing is absolute fact, but this is what my impression of what I have uncovered is. Tom DeLonge was poking around government, trying to get to people that could tell him about UFOs. And he was doing that because he was just a regular guy. Yeah, he happens to be a rock star, but he was interested in the topic. And he opened a lot of doors because he was a rock star. And before TTSA, years before that, he did a couple of UFO conferences where he talked about that. He did the International UFO Conference he videotaped in, and he's like, "Look, I'm just like you guys. I just want to know what's going on," and that's all legit. In fact, there's really nothing illegit about what Tom's tried to do.
Except that his whole board is fed.
Well,
fed.
see, okay, so this is how it evolves. So he was getting
That is
He
interesting.
was getting some answers, and he was getting told some things.
What do y'all think about that? Let me know in the comments. And what should I cover in the Tom DeLonge video? Are there some certain points I should cover? Let me know in the comments, please.
And when
you guys got a lot of commenting to do on this video, y'all. Don't forget, there's a lot of stuff I'm asking y'all to comment on. So please, thanks.
The powers that be behind the Luis Elizondo and the whole rollout, which I believe was a very organized thing, that the TTSA was waiting in the wings. Lou and Chris came forward with this information. They didn't do that in a vacuum. They were cleared to do it. But Ralph Blumenthal, who wrote the article in my movie, says, oh, no, that's not true. But if you put the pieces together, it has to be true. And maybe Ralph doesn't understand it. But when Lou wrote his resignation letter to the Department of Defense, then he went and met with Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal, and he showed them, and he told them about the program. TTSA was already formed, organized, and ready to go. It didn't just form in 2 weeks. So what it looks like to me is that all of these guys had this plan to roll out TTSA, and as a way of opening up information to the public that was going to be very organized and very well done. Tom DeLonge made himself very useful to the powers that be, because they're like, wait a minute, let's put this whole thing under this guy.
Blink 182 for aliens.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He was Leslie Kean in that that series that J.J. Abrams produced was talking about Tom DeLonge's role in it. And she actually said that he was a useful idiot to these people. I think that's horrible. I think that's horrible that she said that.
She might be right, though.
But it might not be far from the truth. But, bless Tom.
It's kind of funny.
But anyway, so the TTSA was waiting in the wings with this fundraising thing. They came out, Tom DeLonge on stage. He had all these guys. Now, all these guys had been brought into this organization. It didn't happen by accident. This was how they decided they were going to begin this rollout. When Lou submitted his resignation letter and went to the New York Times, he submitted that resignation letter. He lost a certain amount of retirement income from resigning early from one of the organizations that he worked with. But he did that, in my opinion, because he knew that he was going to jump onto the TTSA and they were going to go out and raise millions and millions of dollars. Unfortunately, they only raised like $2.7 million. It wasn't enough. And so basically over time, and for a variety of reasons, that organization kind of imploded. It's still out there. It's still doing things. It still has some of its original members, but they never raised the millions and millions and millions of dollars they thought they were going to raise. So what happened then is that, Lou and everybody kind of branched out. The whole plan fell apart. And the TTSA taking the lead and leading everybody toward disclosure, that was plan A for getting this technology to the mainstream. Is TTSA is going to bring it and bubble it up. But
the new narrative, y'all. The new narrative.
Didn't work. And then all these unexpected FOIA releases came out. And then the Defense Intelligence Agency releases these DIRDs that supposedly came out of Bigelow Aerospace, investigating dozens of different technologies that we don't have. The whole thing is the result of an organized plan going sideways. And it's because what we're witnessing in the mainstream is an internal battle between the people that manage this information and want it out and the people that manage this information and don't want it out. And
does the former really exist, though?
There's, in my opinion, again, if I knew all this stuff, then we'd all know it, right? There's factions that think that there needs to be more disclosure, and there's factions that think absolutely not. And there's a lot of reasons. That's it. That's the other thing that we have to think about is what is the real reason for this secrecy? Obviously, a logical argument for that is that one of the reasons for the secrecy is that the people don't need to know. It could upset society. That's been the oldest reason given, and it still has a certain amount of validity. But, I think the other reason is the technology. The people that have it don't want to share it, and they don't want to have to explain where they got it. And you deal with corporations. If Lockheed Martin developed the coding for the stealth fighter because they got something off of a spaceship and it's anti-radar, blah, 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 and now it's on our stealth fighters, and they're the only ones that have it, why do they want to tell anybody where they got it?
Right.
And now you're dealing with corporations and money. But the other thing is, what is the context of this information? And what I mean by that, okay, so you hear the question all the time. Well, the public's ready for it. And you might say, yeah, we're ready for it. But, you know, the question is, we're ready for it only if the context is okay.
Right.
So it's no longer an answer. It's no longer a question that can be answered with, of course we're ready. It's a question that has to be caveated with, well, it's going to depend on what the implications are.
Yes, you can't know if it's ready unless you know what it is. Which,
Yeah, I mean, if they come out tomorrow and they say, oh, hey, there's aliens out there, but you know, they leave us alone, we leave them alone. We don't really know what's going on. We've had brief interactions, but you know, they're very superior to us, and they don't really see us as much, but they're not going to hurt us. And then people are going to go, yeah, we knew of something like that, and they're going to get up the next day and they're going to do largely what they did the day before. But if it comes out, hey, there's aliens out there, we think they might have nefarious plans for us. Hell, we might be being raised for food. Who knows? We don't know, but they're dangerous, so we can't defend against them. That changes your daily life as of now. So the context of disclosure, what it means to how it affects you personally, is really what the societal reaction is going to be.
I'm going to play a guess game with this because I obviously don't know. But when you're sitting across from a guy like Lou, and he's saying, I can't talk about this, I can't talk about that, but he has flown out here to this conference on MUFON. He's a part of at the time, growing endeavor called To the Stars, has a family at home. When talking to other people who know him, like James Fox, like good guy, goes about life, you know, does his thing. If he had possession, personally, of information that quite literally defined the meaning of life, and perhaps did it on a level where it was the type of stuff that if people found out, the world would riot and humanity would end because we'd figure out that there maybe wasn't a point to it, or like we're all simulated or something like that. I don't know how he would sit there and, like, not to go like graphic with it, but I don't know how he wouldn't, like, I don't know how he'd want to live or interact. You know, so when I think about, because he's the one facing the camera, right? We don't know all the guys that aren't facing the camera,
Right,
and what they think and whether they're at the bottom of a whiskey bottle right now. But he, by all intents and purposes, seems to be like a fairly normal guy. I don't know him, but that's just how it comes across. You know, if it were that deep, or if he knew that a secret alien overlord were running the earth from below the sea or something like that, I don't think he'd be able to sit there and have a conversation on camera at the fucking MUFON conference. You know?
I got to tell you, you haven't.
I agree with that. I've said that a lot. I think if people actually knew, I just don't think they would act the way they act. You know? Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you, it's like standing in the middle of a city downtown, knowing that there's a nuclear missile headed. It's in the air, and it's going to land in a few minutes, and you know the time it's going to land. You think you're just going to be acting normal? It just, we can't control really some of our bodily stuff, right? Like our emotion. We can try to hide it, but you know what I mean? That's why I think people think these things, and they're pretty sure, and they have a gut feeling, but I don't think they actually know. I've never witnessed anybody act in a way in my mind that these things really happened to them, or they saw these things, or they know these things. You know, I just think you would act a certain way. But again, I don't know, right? Just speculating here. Everyone's entitled to their opinions and their beliefs, not disrespecting anybody. Let's continue.
The whole conversation, because we talked about that, and one of the things that he told me, and it's in the interview. The whole interview will see the light of day one day. But I'm being, even though it's my interview, I own it. He agreed to do it. He signed off on it. I still have gotten a lot of resistance.
From who?
From people that represent Lou.
And who are these people? Is it like some secretary, or is it, you know, someone deep throat on the phone?
Media reps, people that have that that see him as a valuable piece of intellectual property.
Same people I've dealt with, y'all. Guarantee it. I don't know for sure. I'd love to ask Ron James privately if it's the same people, but I guarantee you it is. And I'll just say this. I've never said this actually before. Is someone in Hollywood. Okay? Famous producer in Hollywood. Makes movies that you have heard of. Definitely you've heard of them. And shows and documentaries, TV show, all kinds of huge stuff that you've heard of. This same people set up his 60 Minutes interview. They set up a lot of things. And it's all about the money, y'all. That's who sort of, the thinly veiled threat that I got, that if I don't toe the line, then I'm not going to get access to Lou, right? Because they need it to go a certain way. There's a lot of money on the line for them. At least they think there is, right, with Lou and whoever else. So just saying, that's interesting.
What did they say to you? And did they call you? Did they show up at your house? Like, how does that?
It's not that clandestine. Basically, when I sold the doc to the distributor, it was originally going to be called the Elizondo tapes, and people that represent Lou came and said, "No, you can't even use that interview unless we agree to let you." And I said, "Well, it's my interview. I'll do whatever I want to with it." And then the distributor came to me and said, "Well, we understand that it's your interview, but you're going to have to play nice with these guys, or we're not going to buy your movie, and we're not going to release your movie."
What year was that?
This was back when I signed the deal about 2 years ago.
I'm telling you, these people are very powerful people in Hollywood. And honestly, at the time, I thought it was weird that they had even answered my email, because our podcast, although it's well known in Texas, it's not like super huge, and I'm a nobody, right? But I remember the guy on the phone telling me, and through email, "I like you, man. I like your stuff, and I think this would be good," and blah blah blah, and just buttering me up, man. And yeah, it's, I don't know, guys. It's just a web. It's that's why I'm asking questions. This is, they had the opposite effect of what they were trying to do. They're trying to get me to shut up and move along, and instead they don't know me, man. And they're not going to know a lot of people that they're going to start to pressure. We'll come out and say whatever we got to and ask the tough questions we need to, man. So anyway, let's continue.
So the movie was originally going to be called the Elizondo tapes.
Yeah, that's what my original contract was, because I have a whole bunch of more stuff that is very, very controversial that's in my interview and within some other information.
So based on this resistance, and then the fact that you were getting a lot of other information that wasn't necessarily directly related to that.
I turned the corner with the movie because, A, they weren't going to let me call it the Elizondo tapes, and B, that's when I brought in Michio Kaku and Gary Nolan and all these other people to make it bigger than just Lou Elizondo, because if I continued down the track of making it about Lou and making it about the stuff that he told me that to this day is not out, I was going to have a lot of problems getting the film out.
Were you scared of that?
I was very scared, yeah. I've been, the film came out April 18th, 2023, and until...
real quick, guys, I got to get a drink, but I'm just going to leave this playing real quick. I'll be right back.
Midnight on April 17th, before I saw that icon pop up on Amazon Prime, I still was not convinced it was ever going to see the light of day. The story of the beginning of this ordeal of making the film all the way to seeing it out in the public, if making my next film means I have to go through what I've been through for the last 2 years, I don't care if I ever pick up a video camera again, as long as I live. It's been, I can't even describe it. And there's a lot of stuff I just can't even talk about. And there's stuff that even if I did talk about, you'd just think I was crazy.
But you said it's less clandestine than we think. It's pretty straightforward.
That particular element of it was less clandestine, yeah.
What other elements are there? Okay. Fair enough. You're giving a lot today, so I'm okay with that.
Well, I mean, the thing is that I was totally under surveillance the whole time I was making the movie. My phone, and this comes with the territory with being part of MUFON. They're under surveillance anyway, by people that are keeping track of what the UFO community is doing. It comes with the territory. You take it for granted. Your phone's tapped. They're watching your computer. If they feel like it, they're following you. Every once in a while, you find some little evidence in your house that
Like
somebody's like stuff moved. That there's no explanation for how it got moved. It's a little calling card. We can get to you. Like it happens, and it sounds like something right out of a freaked out movie. And I don't want to be the guy out there saying it because it just makes me look stupid. But I've lived it. It's part of the thing, and the information in Accidental Truth. There's a lot of people that didn't want that stuff out, and there's still a lot of people that don't want it out, and there's still an active effort to quash the film even though it's out. And I have had to, at every turn in the process of making this movie, I've had to understand what I was up against, and I've had to adjust my trajectory to sidestep their latest attempt to put obstacles in front of me.
Despite the fact that it came across as far more out in the open as you would have thought. And my head's going on. My head's going to
what
Hollywood.
do you mean?
Meaning the way you started this by saying it's a lot less clandestine than you think.
No. The situation with media representation by some of the people that were in it, some of the threats that I got over using certain things in the film.
What does a threat look like or sound like?
If you put this out there in this way, I'm going to sue you. That's what it looks like.
Okay, so fairly.
So when I say less clandestine, that's what I mean.
Got it.
So
nobody. It wasn't like, do you like your dog?
Not
Like
directly.
that. Okay.
No.
Okay.
Because I still have the dog. So,
that's good.
Yeah,
that's good. I just.
No, I'm not. I was never like threatened in that direct manner, but I was basically some of the content that was supposed to be in the film was pretty much nixed by the threat of the film won't come out. Some of the actions that I threatened to take to preserve my right to release the film was nixed in, you can go in that direction, but we're going to put your film on a shelf till it's over. And so some of the powers that be that managed to get a certain amount of control over the film used it to do as much manipulating as they could. And I did everything I could to get around that, including hiring lawyers over fair use, hiring lawyers over witness protection and whistleblower stuff, just to find out, what the implications were of revealing some of the information. And there's information that I didn't put in the film that could technically be termed as classified still. And if you put that out, even though you got it from a non-classified source, you can still get in trouble for revealing classified information.
Really?
Yeah.
Even if you don't know?
If you know it's classified and you
you
put it out anyway.
But couldn't you have deniability on that? Like, I didn't know it was classified.
Really? You want to sit in a room with a bunch of FBI guys and try to pull that off?
Yeah, that's true. I always forget they hold the cards. It's already predetermined what they're going to do.
And the truth is that I would wake up in the middle of the night sometimes. My hard drive's chattering away, and this happened about every week.
Your hard drive's what?
Chattering away in the middle of the night, and I look at my computer, and you can tell data is being transferred across the internet. They're basically harvesting my hard drive, I believe, keeping up with what I was doing with this movie and keeping an eye on it. And I still to this day think the only reason that it's out is because it was allowed to be put out, not because I forced my way into the public with it.
Did you find? I mean, you've already kind of said like there's some things you didn't put in there, obviously, so it's a piece of it. But you also said that it started off as the Elizondo tapes, and then you went with a lot of the other information you have to make an amalgamation. Not just completely focused on him, even though he was still heavily featured in it. Like, do you think you heavily were creating and while in the creating process self-censoring out of that fear?
Absolutely. Yeah. There was a lot of things that I just didn't put in there because I didn't want to leave stains on the people in the movie. Like people that said that there's a lot of stuff in the film where people said something and then went whoops, but there's a whole lot more that will not see the light of day.
Wow, that's interesting.
Because at the end of the day, I promised myself two things. One is I wasn't going to denigrate anybody. And I don't know if you notice this in the film, but we don't tell people what to think. We don't say, hey, this person's not telling the truth. We don't say, hey, this person's a bad person. We don't do any of that. We present you the evidence. You can watch what's being said, and you can make up your own mind. And I'll tell you something that people that watch the movie the first time, they don't get. The first time you watch it, it's cool, it's interesting, blah, blah, blah. The second time you watch it, you start to understand that a lot of what some of these people are saying is not true. They're not telling the truth. And then when you get to the third or fourth time that you watch it, it really starts to sink in. And that's the magic of this film. It's like onions. You're peeling away a layer every time.
How do you, like, what were some of the, is it like a poker type thing? Like there's just some telltale language and body language patterns, or was it more you were figuring out based on other testimony you were getting that this doesn't line up?
Both. I mean, for one thing, there's a rumor, and I don't know if it's true or not, but I tend to think that it is.
I love rumors.
There's a rumor that John Alexander pulled Lou Elizondo aside at the very beginning of all this and said, don't do UFO conferences because these people know the questions to ask and they're going to get you. And this was right about the time I interviewed him, and I knew the questions to ask. And there's a lot of times in this interview, like you were talking about knowing if something's harmful or not. In the interview, Lou says there's reasons for concern. Says that fear, I wouldn't go that far, but we definitely need to be concerned. And he said that. And I didn't use it in the film, but yeah, he told me that. And he said it to other places too. The reason this was going to originally be called the Elizondo tapes is because I considered there's a big gotcha in the movie around Lou. And it was friendly, and the interview continued afterwards. And it basically comes around him pretty much inadvertently admitting that there's a non-human intelligence, or at least some kind of alternative unknown intelligence that's a part of all this. And he says it, but he doesn't mean to say it. And that's where the whole title, Accidental Truth, comes from, was that statement. And that's why it was originally going to be the Elizondo tapes. But then as I started, because I've got a bunch of stuff, like that tape where he's talking about the isotopic ratios of metals. That was from an interview that he did in a Washington, D.C. hotel with somebody from MUFON before this whole thing really blew up. So a 45-minute tape. The section of it that I used is where he talks about the metallurgy, and he basically admits in the thing, it's like, look, it's not that these materials, we don't know what they are, because we can study metals. We know the periodic tables. Anybody can figure out what an object is. But there's isotopic ratios in these materials that just simply can't. They indicate that they cannot have been made on Earth because there's a whole science behind it. And Gary Nolan goes on to confirm that as well. The isotopic ratios of it's molecular things that.
I wonder if Lou Elizondo gave some pieces to Gary Nolan. That's interesting.
Have to do with the environment they're manufactured in, and like you can have titanium on Earth and it's got a certain isotopic ratio, which is a molecular configuration. You could have titanium that was manufactured somewhere else. The isotopic ratios will be different, and they cannot be changed. So in other words, you can say, okay, this is titanium manufactured. It's got a certain isotopic ratio throughout all the elements in the titanium that made it, the different metals that came together. Now, if you have a piece of titanium and it's got all the same elements, but the ratios of the isotopes are different, that indicates that it wasn't made in ways that we understand. And so Lou says that on the tape. Now, there's 2.5 minutes of this tape that I used in the film. It's a 45-minute tape. There's less than 10 minutes I used at this interview with Lou. It's a 45-minute interview. And so originally I thought I had enough material just around my Lou Elizondo material to make something pretty striking. And that got kiboshed real fast. And then so that's when I brought in all these other people, and that's when I came up. It wasn't the Elizondo tapes anymore. It was Accidental Truth, because I got a lot of other people that kind of accidentally tell me something too.
Based on how you're talking about Lou now, after the fact and after the documentary's even out, you may have said this, but the first question would be, have some of those same people who represented him reached out since the doc came out? I can't remember if you explained that. And then the other question is, do you think he would ever sit down and do an interview with you again?
A lot of the stuff I've literally been...
You're good.
A lot of the stuff, to answer your question, I've literally been demanded not to talk about. But what I will say is that Lou and I had a very good text rapport right up until right about before the movie came out and before other people stepped in. I was texting him constantly, and he was telling me how he was very supportive of the film. He hoped it did well. He was willing to do social media and a bunch of other stuff to help us. And then all of a sudden, that quashed. That exchange ended.
When did that end? Film came out April 2023. When did that end?
Yeah, it was right before the film came out. Right when other people stepped in to manage my access to Lou.
Okay, but you had long since obviously changed the film name and changed the focus because some of these people had already talked to you for years before that. And so now they came back in, and this time when they came in, he also went out.
Yeah.
For good. You haven't talked to him
I haven't
at all.
talked to him since. In fact, I was told not to try to reach out to him directly.
The media rep told you that.
Yeah.
So, is Lou the stand-up guy we think he is? Just asking the question. Makes a lot of claims about, let's look real quick at something. I'm going to show y'all something. This is a pinned tweet that Lou has. August 22, 2020. My pledge to you, I will always tell you the truth. Number 2, I will own my mistakes and hold myself accountable. 3, everyone will be treated with respect no matter their position. Number 4, abuse or hatred towards others will not be tolerated. 5, I will always push for full disclosure. Now, real quick, in the movie Accidental Truth, he states that he's not a leaker and he's not a whistleblower and never will be. Now, the whistleblower, protection came out. Why isn't he blowing the whistle? Why isn't he coming out to testify like David Grush? Because he wants the money, the deal. Stephen Greenstreet put out a video, right? And the whole reason Stephen Greenstreet did a 180, I'm not saying I agree with everything Stephen Greenstreet has done. I've made a video about it. He's very trolly, and he hates on the entire community and the whole subject as a whole. But the whole reason he did a 180, he talked about it, is that he was on the phone with a lot of these people, doesn't say who, and they started talking about money, how everyone else is making money and they're not. Just connecting the dots here. I don't know. Is he talking about Luis Elizondo? Just saying. This is all interesting. Now, another way to say, deniability is, well, this other people reached out, not me. It's right, representatives. They said it, not me. Right? That's how you deny. You can say, I've always told the truth, but maybe people connected to him haven't. Right? Who he is monitoring. He wouldn't let people go out and represent it if he didn't believe in them, right? Or he just has people out there representing him who don't follow these pledges. I'm just saying, I've got a lot of questions about Lou. Just very interesting. So look, I'm going to skip to one last part of this video so we can end it. We're coming up on 50 minutes. Absolutely insane. There's one last part. And y'all should check it out.
See, it's not that I don't think that Lou or Chris either are full of shit. I think that what we're dealing with here is that at the beginning of this 2017, there was this decision made by a lot of people that we're going to roll this out, but we're going to do it with this new narrative. And again, the new narrative is whitewashes everything from the end of Blue Book all the way till the beginning of ATIP and pretends there was no official government study of this in that time. And that is ultimately where all the deception and all the lies are buried, and that's why they're whitewashing it with the new story. So when TTSA rolled out, they were going to be the vehicle for the new narrative. That's why you have all these CIA guys, oh yeah, we're telling this story, and we're this vehicle that's going to do it.
And Tom DeLonge.
And and I'm not sure that Tom fully understood his purpose in this, but that, in my opinion, that's what it was. And then now, and even then, but especially now, if you are a threat to that new narrative, you're not getting to any of these guys. You're not. I got to Gary Nolan, but I was one of the last people. And the interview I did with Lou was one of the only ones. And the fact that I was able to get to Chris Mellon and press him on the question, these were all anomalies. That's why this movie is an anomaly, because the information and the questions I was able to ask these people are questions they will not answer now to anybody. And so the fact that that you can go and get to these guys and ask these questions, I got very, very lucky, because you can't do that now. Now, Lou does a lot of these podcasts and stuff, but he's still only saying things that are on a very tightly controlled rail, and he's going further and further.
Check out my video about is Lou reading from a script in his interviews. Right? Everyone said I'm crazy. Just saying.
But he still knows what he can say and what he can't say. And in the film, he pretty much adhered to that. And in the interview I did with him, he adhered to it. But there were just a couple times when he slipped, because I knew what questions to ask. I wasn't trying to get him, but in the back of my mind, I wanted to get him to tell me something. In as friendly a way as you could possibly do that.
All right, guys. That's it for this video. Don't forget, leave all the comments. Let me know what you guys think. This was a long one. If you made it this far, holy shit. So my apologies, and excuse my French there. But all right, guys. I'm Patrick with Vetted. Please hit that like button. Leave the comments. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. And we'll see you on the next video. Don't forget, every day's a gift. Peace.